Even down toward All right, 7:30 according to my computer. Huh? That clock is wrong. It says 7:30 on my computer, right? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Ford, absent. Trustee Clayton, absent. Trustee Eastman,
Here.
Trustee Jamerson,
Here.
Trustee Raff,
Here.
Trustee Smith,
Here.
Trustee Trevino.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Need a motion for the approval of the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting of June 3rd, 2025.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. I need a motion for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees governance workshop held on May 20th.
So moved.
Second? I guess I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The Finance Director's report. First, we'll have the approval of bills. Can I get a motion for the approval of the bills? Is
Motion to approve the bills.
there a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Trustee Raff,
Aye.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
Trustee Trevino.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Director Vasquez, may we have your report, please?
Yes, thank you, Trustee Jamerson. My main item to bring up tonight is our audit presentation. Presented tonight is the 2024 Annual Financial Report and Audit. This year, we began field work early back in March with many hours spent on updating schedules and gathering data requested by the audit team. I was able to take lead on field work before I took my leave, and we wrapped up our audit team's time on site before schedule. A lot of time has gone into review of multiple drafts to bring you the final report being presented tonight. Hard copies have been provided to the trustees, and if you do not wish to keep your hard copy, please return it to me. As in years prior, after the presentation of the audit, I would ask that the board make a motion to vote to accept the audit as presented tonight. Staff will then post the final accepted report to the finance section of the website. I am pleased that our efforts this year have resulted in an audit presentation before our goal of June 30th, and that our management letter was greatly improved from past years. The bar has been raised, and I will work hard to keep it there. One item that I want to note before the presentation is that the village has carried forward a variance in our main checking account reconciliation in recent years. Essentially, our books have shown a larger balance than it was actually in the bank. That amount has been small enough to get a pass on any cash adjustments in the audit process, but it is still a variance that keeps us from having a clear reconciliation for that account. This year, the village spent time and resources trying to go back and correct this variance, including work with a third-party auditor. However, this variance predates the current finance staff, as well as the accounting software that we started using in 2023. At the end of this year's audit, that variance was $20,859.34. After discussion with our auditors, we've decided to have that amount written off as part of the 2025 audit that will come next year. The amount is small enough that it is not considered a material adjustment by the auditors, and it does not make sense to spend more village staff time and resources searching for an amount that could be made up of multiple transactions over a number of years. With this action, we can move forward with clean reconciliations for 2025. In the future, if any new variants were to appear, we could more easily identify the time period to focus our search. I have discussed this matter with Trustee Clayton, our finance trustee, and he is in agreement with this approach. While this adjustment will not happen until 2025, I wanted to make sure the board was aware of this item. For the presentation, I'd like to introduce Ed Tracy, the Executive Vice President and Head of the Audit Practice at Selden Fox. This is the fourth year of our current engagement with Selden Fox to perform our audit and the first year of our most recent extension. I'll now turn it over to Ed for his presentation and comments on our 2024 audit.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Thank you for having me here this evening. Again, this was our fourth year doing the audit for the village, and this was by far the cleanest and smoothest audit we've had to date. We made a few adjustments, four in all, one that did not have a P&L effect, but was rather reclassification. The overall effect was decreased the bottom line by 63,000, and that was primarily related to one entry for the net pension liability, which is typically done during the audit. For comparison purposes, last year there were 18 adjustments, so a really great improvement this year. We also make some adjustments to convert the fund financial statements to a full accrual basis for the government-wide financial statements, which I'll kind of point out when I go through the audit briefly. Those are typical entries we make each year. They come primarily from information provided by management or third parties like actuaries, and are standard for government audits. Typically, if we come across any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in either the internal control or financial reporting, we present those in a management letter. This year, we did not identify any of those. So the only thing in the management letter is just some information on some recently issued but not yet effective standards from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, as a way to just kind of make you aware of these upcoming standards, which will have some impact on the financial reporting, but probably not the overall accounting for the village. As far as the audit report is concerned itself, it starts with our independent auditor's report, which is an unmodified opinion. So that's the highest form of assurance that we can give that the financial statements and the related disclosures are in compliance and in conformity with governmental accounting practices. There's also a management discussion and analysis section, and that's kind of a financial narrative for the year. It provides some good comparative information and addresses topics that are required to be addressed by the standards in that particular MD&A. It's also written in conjunction with management, and it's a good place to go to if you just want a quick summary of the overall financial results. As far as the financial statements are concerned themselves, just a couple highlights if I can. The statements conclude the financial statements, the basic financial statements, I guess, which follow the management discussion analysis, begin on page 4. Include really two sets of financial statements. There's the government-wide financial statements, which are the first two statements you see there from pages 4 to 7. And then there's fund financial statements, which follow. The fund financial statements are what you used to see on a monthly basis. The government-wide financial statements are kind of more of a long-term perspective. It takes the fund financial statements and converts them to what's called a full accrual basis, recognizes long-term assets, long-term liabilities, whereas in the fund financial statements, those things aren't on the balance sheet. Overall, a couple highlights from the statement of net position on pages 4 and 5. Just to point out, cash and investments remained almost the same from the prior year, about 16.6 million, which is where it was in the prior year. Capital assets were up about 6 to 7% overall, and that's on a net basis. So you record the asset at its cost and then you depreciate it over time. So the additions exceeded the depreciation this year to the extent that the overall balance increased by about 7%. Your long-term debt consists of the various SSA bond issues. There were no new issues in 2024, and you paid down about 175,000 of principal. And the other big long-term liability is your net pension liability with IMRF, and that decreased by about 290,000 in the current year. It's now sits at about 740,000, and your IMRF is 86.5% funded, which was up from about 80.6% funded last year. Overall, the statement of activities on pages 6 and 7, which is your income statement under this full accrual method. The revenues, overall, the revenues were up from the prior year, largely due to the $1 million grant or intergovernmental payment from the Lake County for the permanent easement on a federal life property. Outside that, revenues were pretty flat overall, and expenses were down about 4 to 4.5% overall. The other set of statements is as I mentioned, the fund financial statements, which begin on page 8. But what I wanted to kind of jump ahead to is page 11 and 12, and these are the governmental funds. There's separate columns, and pages for each major governmental fund. And that the fund is a major fund if it meets a threshold of 10% of the total revenue, assets, liabilities, revenues, or expenses. But really, obviously, the general fund is the primary fund for the village. And prior to, well, revenues exceed expenditures by just over $1 million. In the current year, you transferred out $2 million to the capital projects fund. So overall, your fund balance went down by about $950,000. But at the end of the year, it still sits at about 90% of your annual expenses. So it's in a good position, and you're able to set aside some reserves for future capital projects. The other item you'll note is in the water and sewer fund, which is on pages 16, I guess. Overall, the consolidated water fund had an operating loss of $138,000, but that's after taking into account $278,000 of depreciation. So from a cash flow standpoint, it was ahead about $140,000. And the sewer fund had an operating income of $250,000, and that was slightly under where it was last year, but still a very comfortable position to be in. And overall, those net positions at the end of the year in both the water and sewer funds are in a strong position. Nearly $8.3 million in the water fund, of which almost $1 million is unrestricted. So just overall, it was a solid year for the village financially. And again, the audit, I want to commend Tony and his team. We were able to come in and start to finish, get everything done from the time we started to the time we walked out. We basically had everything done that we needed. And, so we certainly appreciate the cooperation we got there.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Trustee Eastman.
I guess, first of all, knowing where things were a couple of years ago, I'd just like to commend the finance director for his hard work. And it sure seems like this year was super clean and, everything ties out really well. The only question that I usually ask is kind of pertaining to the letter, is there anything longer term that, just looking at this, that would allow us to better plan for the long-term financial future? Is there anything that came up in looking at and doing the audit that you think that we should be aware of going forward? Any risk, really more focus on risks than anything else.
No, I think some of the things you did, especially with the transferring monies into the capital projects fund to kind of start setting things aside like that, I think that's a good practice to have, to continue to kind of take a look at if you have surpluses in the general fund, to be able to set those aside for long-term purposes is, I think, prudent planning. So you're able to take on projects without maybe necessarily incurring debt. If you, or in some cases, if you're not setting aside those funds for capital purposes, you might be forced to take on debt to fund major projects. And you doing that, I think, is a proper step and a good thing to do. And I would recommend continuing to look at that each year, and if there are funds available to set aside to do so. The water and sewer funds seem to be operating as they should, where, they're intended to fund their own capital projects, capital works, and so they need to have some reserves, and that seems to be the case there. And I wouldn't call any of the reserves you currently have excessive. I think they're just in a good spot right now. So, yeah, usually, your general fund, you want to be somewhere between 50 and 100% of your annual expenses to be in a good position, and without, in my mind, being excessive. And I think that's where you're at right now.
Thank you. Just one more quick follow-up question. I know in the past we've talked about, potentially bonding out if we were to do a major water project, right? That's something that was mentioned in here, right? We hadn't issued any bonds or anything like that. And I realize that this isn't a expert opinion, but just off the top of your head, do you think we're in a relatively healthy position were we to take on a major expense like that?
Yeah, I think overall you are. I've seen a lot of municipalities, be able to get some kind of loans through IEPA if it was something from a water perspective, if that was something, not knowing the specifics of any project you want.
Right.
But yeah, I think right now the water fund is and the sewer and the water funds are in a pretty good position where you can take it on, and they're generating generally positive cash flow. I mean, there was a small operating loss, but you know, we had like 270,000 or whatever the number was in depreciation. So, you know, that's kind of a sunk cost, I guess, you know, from a cash flow perspective. So, yeah, I think overall you tend to generate positive cash flow from these funds each year. So that's a good thing. And you've built up some reserves where you would be able to, depending on the size of the project, either, you know, finance it internally, or if you need to take out debt, you would have reserves to pay that back.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? So we need a motion to approve the audit, to accept the audit.
So moved.
Second.
We need a roll call. Roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
trustee Raff,
Aye.
trustee Smith,
Aye.
trustee Trevino, trustee Eastman,
Aye.
motion carries.
Do we also need a motion to approve the, no, the 21,000?
That's just, we'll see the audit next year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I could, one recommendation would be for Tony not to have a child right before the audit starts. But beyond that, that's okay. But thank you very much.
Thank
I'll
you.
take that in consideration.
Director Vasquez, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, nothing else on my report tonight. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Treasurer's report is next. Our treasurer is not here. Director of Community Services report, Director Witt.
I only have one item for tonight. As promised, with the Saunders Road project edging forward, we'll talk about that a little later this evening. Bids were received on last Friday. So the project will be moving forward once this board actually awards a contract. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Building Department is going to be hosting a neighborhood meeting to be held next Wednesday, June 25th. And is that next Wednesday? Next Wednesday, June
Yes.
25th, from 6:30 to 7:30 here at Village Hall. We plan to have members from GHA here to answer any questions with regard to the project. Also, we'll have the ability to discuss things like, you know, pending lane closures and how we'll be dealing with that, notification systems, you know, what happens to my driveway, what happens to my mailbox, you know, what's going to happen with my culvert and restoration and all that. We'll look at project timeframe. We'll just take the project start to finish. So any questions that any residents have, they're all welcome to come. The meeting will be videotaped as well, and a link will be put onto the Building Department webpage so that those that can't attend in person will be able to watch it anytime thereafter. So again, that will be Wednesday, the 25th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. That's all I have.
Thank you. Consultants reports, attorney's report. Anything that's not?
Yes, I do have just a brief update. After the governance workshop, we started looking at the procedures that are in our village code. It was a little bit like pulling on a yarn. Throughout the very first title of the village code, Title I, there are many provisions, some of which date back to the earliest days of the village. They just never have really been looked at in a long time. So I've been looking at those. Some of our neighboring villages have gone through this exercise where they basically restated their entire village code or updated it. After spending a couple of days looking at most of our other sections, with the exception of zoning, which is something we might consider one day. I'm not suggesting that yet. I think most of what we need to do can be accomplished with a restatement of Title I, which is all the administrative provisions, just reorganizing it, getting rid of some of the, there's some sections that no one has ever applied. We have sections dealing with the village collector and some other things which we don't have. And Anyway, so I have started working on that at the mayor's direction, and I don't know if we'll have that ready for the next committee of the whole, but I think that'll be a logical topic to explore because some of the changes involve just how we operate board procedures. Some of them are, things that we have to do by statute. They're not clearly set out. So that's just wanted to give the board a little idea of what I've been starting to prepare. That's it.
Trustee Raff?
Would that be a good topic for a committee of the whole?
Well, the mayor had suggested that we take this up at the committee of the whole, and I said I will try to have something ready, but I don't know if I'll have it ready by July 1, but it is, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Plan Commission report?
Good evening. Planning Commission met on June the 5th. We started discussing whether or not to update the comprehensive plan. And we had a presentation by Tesca explaining what comprehensive plans were and when we might consider updating them. And I think the sense of the commission is that we probably should update the plan, not revise it, but update it. Particularly because there are 4 different areas that have come up since the last plan. The sustainability plan is one of them, the stormwater study, the land use study, and the plan development ordinance. So we will consider whether those should somehow be put into or integrated into the existing comprehensive plan. We will meet again probably in July. We're looking at July 10th, but it will depend on what Orphans comes up with. So that date is still to be determined.
Okay. Any questions for the Plan Commission? No? Okay. Thank you. Zoning Board of Appeals,
ZBA,
that too.
that's us, yes. And the ZBA met on the 12th.
No. Really?
No, yes, believe it or not. And it was an open discussion of the sign ordinances at Colonial Court and at Shops of Riverwoods. Now, Shops of Riverwoods has a huge list of requirements with regard to signs because as a special use, we were able to do that. The sign description for Colonial Courts is a blurb about that big that says pretty close to nothing. And we talked about whether it's the landlord's responsibility to let his tenants know what should be there, or is it the tenant's responsibility to find out from the village? And if so, where do we go from there? Because very frankly, both Shops and Colonial Courts have very little to do with what they're required to do when it comes to signage.
Yeah, that's fine.
Window signs are rampant and not permitted. Signs of the businesses are either too big or too small, or have big logos or small logos. And I know that in some of them, there were hearings before the village. I think Orange Fitness was one that came before the village. And we said we would allow them to have an extra large logo on it. It's gone beyond that. And most of the signs are bigger than what we permit. And many, many, many of the businesses have all kinds of window signs, 4, 5, 6 gate window signs, or signs that cover the entire windows, none of which is permitted. So we talked about what we need to look at and what we need to do. And the members of the board are going to go and they're going to look and they're going to see what they think of what's going on there. And we are going to meet again sometime in July, and I'm not quite certain when, but it will be in July, to discuss where we go with that. And the question becomes, do we try to enforce ordinance that we've got that's not being met, which could be an astronomical amount of work and difficult to deal with existing businesses? Or do we get a cohesive list of things that we want because there are lots of properties that are for lease there, and there are going to be new businesses coming in. And we don't yet know, we haven't come to an agreement as to whether we are going to go in and say, hey, you got this, you can't have it. You got this, you can't have it. Take it down. Your sign is too big. Your sign is too long, many of which are. Or if we say, you got anyone who comes in now is going to have to obey, and certain things which are really obnoxious looking are going to have to come down. So we had one meeting. We will have another meeting in July. We're going to try to come up with some sort of a coherent, cohesive list, and then decide what we do with it. So that's where we stand right now. Does anyone have any questions? Hearing none.
Seeing none.
Back to my seat.
Thank you. Police report, Chief, do you know?
Yes, I have a few items. First, of course, the police activity since the last meeting is in your packets. Additionally, I have a few other items. I was at the car show. A couple of you were there. I know I talked to Trustee Smith, and I didn't get there till it was towards the end. But from what I'm told, it was a record turnout for the car show. We filled up the main lot. The overflow lot was only for the people who brought cars to the show. Everybody else parked here filled this up, and officers had to park cars along Port Wine Road to get people in. The weather was great, and when I got there, everybody was having a good time. There were some great cars there, so I think we'll have to prepare for more people even next year. It was a big success. Then today we were part of a publicized effort along Route 21 to boost safety. We joined several other Northern Illinois law enforcement agencies in a concentrated initiative to improve safety along the Route 21 corridor. So I had a traffic detail out all day, and there's one out now, and we've been making stops. Drove along Milwaukee today, and between us and Lincolnshire and Buffalo Grove, I don't know if anybody else saw. But,
I saw,
yeah.
several people pulled over.
Yeah, so,
No, I was not.
but I'm glad to hear that.
I was not.
Last February, I had reported to you that two dogs had escaped from their owner's yard and attacked and subsequently killed another dog in the neighborhood. That dog we had it declared dangerous. Those dogs, we had them both declared dangerous in administrative hearing court. And the owner was under certain conditions about keeping the dogs in the house or muzzled when outside and in an enclosure. Well, unfortunately, on the 12th, the dogs somehow got out of the house and then also got out of the yard. I guess it was a perfect storm. And they went into another yard in the neighborhood and they broke into a chicken coop. And unfortunately, they killed 3 chickens. So we've issued this citations again for admin court. And I've been in contact with the owner, and we're working to have the dogs removed from town into a place that's more suitable for these animals. That'll be set to go on the next admin court date. But the owner is being cooperative. On June 13th, we responded to a report of a suicidal woman in a car with a knife along Lake Cook by Discover, and who jumped out of the car after threatening to harm herself with the knife. And we detained her in the area on foot and got the knife away from her and had her transported to the hospital. And we did an involuntary committal for her treatment. Nobody was hurt. And that's all I have.
Any questions for the chief? Yes, sir. Trustee Raff.
In a situation such as you described, do we have access to a negotiator or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, we didn't really have time to wait. We just went and we located her near the car that she exited from. And we were able to take physical control of her and take the knife away from her. And then the ambulance took her from there. But we work with crisis intervention teams, specifically the Lake County Crisis Intervention Team. And it's something that's where there's more time involved. We would have them come and respond with social workers and have them handle certain situations. And we've used them a few times in the past for people who were in distress, but didn't need our immediate intervention to protect themselves or protect others. So we just waited at the scene until they came, and then they worked with the individuals. And we also have access to another crisis intervention team outside of Lake County. In case they're tied up, we can have them come, and we've actually had that team come also.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Fire District report.
Could I just
I'm
add,
sorry.
excuse me, Trustee Jamerson, could I just add one comment about the auto show?
Sure.
Thank you. So as Chief Dano said, the auto show was great. I think there were 26 cars, lots of residents. Both lots, the lot was full, as he said, people parking on Port Line. I'd also like to thank RPC and RRA and Boy Scout 50, who was grilling and selling, sandwiches or hot dogs and burgers, water, things like that. North Shore Line, John Maxon, a Riverwoods resident, his band was playing, really a wonderful event. And I'd also like to thank Chief Dano and his officer for doing all that directing of traffic and things like that. Really did a great job. Everybody had a great day. So thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Fire District report, Chief Kruger is not here tonight. Information items and comments from the president. Well, I am not the president, but Mayor Ford mentioned that she has not received any requests of topics other than what Bruce just mentioned for the committee of the whole meeting. So if you do have a topic, if you could please get it to her by the 23rd, she will put it on the agenda for that meeting and do whatever research needs to be done. Are there any visitors wishing to address the board tonight on something that's not on the agenda? Please state your name.
Randy Merrill, RPC. As we had mentioned earlier, it was a successful car show, lots of people. We were grateful to be stationed right near the food. So needless to say, we got a lot of foot traffic visiting us. We sold some books, we sold some native plant seeds, and other than smelling like a barbecue going home, it was a great day. Additionally, we again are scheduled to have our garage sale here on Saturday, July 19th. And we have 11 resident participants so far, which is basically the same. Last year, we had 12. So it should be a good turnout.
Great. Any questions? Okay, thank you. New business. First item is an approval of a resolution to approve an intergovernmental agreement for maintenance of a stream flow gauge on the Des Plaines River. Director Witt, please.
I'm going to defer this to Attorney Hubert, I believe,
Well,
who knows so much more about this than I.
We have a gauge that tells us how high the river is. We put it in with a grant some years ago in cooperation with the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission, the SMC. The terms of that are that every 3 years or so, we renew the agreement and we share in the cost of maintaining it. So when we have a big rain event and the river starts rising, this gauge is the closest to the village. It gives us the most accurate information about where the river is. Well, I think because of COVID or something, we seem to have lost track of the agreement for a year or two, but SMC rediscovered it and said it's time to re-up the agreement for 3 years. At this point, both we and Lincolnshire are parties to the agreement with SMC. We split the cost in 3 parts, and I think the agreement is for 3 years. I think the amounts are in the agreement. It's relatively modest share for the village for the value that this provides. The form of the intergovernmental agreement is similar to the ones we've approved 3 times before. And so SMC was just hoping we would approve the agreement so we could sign it and come current on our charges.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I would like to say I have some discussion. I watch that gauge because I'm in the floodplain. And when it gets to 15 and a half feet, I know I need to be sandbagging my house. Because when it gets to 16 feet, it's coming in the front door. So, and I know that all the people along the river do keep an eye on that gauge. So it's really important to the village. So
Because it involves the expenditure of money, I prefer roll call vote on this, please.
okay, fine. Roll call, please.
Trustee Raff,
Aye.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
Trustee Trevino,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
motion carries.
The next item is an approval of a contract with Gawalt Hamilton Associates, Inc. in the not-to-exceed amount of $13,500 for professional services related to the replacement of the water main and valve, along with the valve vault at Saunders Road and Brayburn Drive. Director Witt, I think.
Certainly, Trustee Jamerson, even though you basically explained the whole package here. As you know, the leak at 1661 Saunders Road was found and finally repaired. It was found within the section of water main that passes across Saunders Road at Brayburn. Two things with it, really. When they excavated the pipe, they found that there was a previous patch to a leak. And between that and the leak that had occurred with the pending $3.some million road project that we're doing directly above that, it felt prudent to actually replace that line. In conjunction with that, the other safety issue that we wanted to bring forward is the valve itself that is in the current southbound lane of Saunders Road. Poses a problem for maintenance, poses a problem for actually servicing that valve or turning it on and off. There is an issue that, any worker could be struck by a vehicle. So as part of the project that we're proposing is to take that valve vault and shift it 20, 30 feet further west, get it out of the right of way totally of Saunders Road. So GHA had put forth a request from Klopfer, who was the contractor that actually did the repair on the leak. And they felt that, with the knowledge that they have of that pipe, that the estimate of cost is about $55,000. And we'd like to move forward with that. We've talked about this previously. But I needed to get an approval for a contract with Gawalt to actually put together a bid spec so that we could send it out and get multiple quotes on the project. So again, though we feel that the estimate we have is solid because the contractor is very well aware of what it is, we think it's also prudent because of the amount of money that we send it formally out for bids. So the proposal or the request in front of the board tonight is to award to Gawalt Hamilton Associates a contract in a not to exceed amount of $13,500 to provide their professional services necessary to replace the water main and the valve vault. That will take us from discussions from here forward through bid documents, the bidding, letting of the contract, and doing the construction observation, as well as final project closeout. So it's the whole ball of wax put into this not to exceed number.
Okay. Can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any questions? Trustee Raff, please.
The relocation of the valve, is that electronically?
It would be, okay, that's a very good question. The original thought is we take it out of the right of way of Saunders Road. However, putting it onto the street would be a private street. So I guess the answer to that will probably be that it'll stick a foot into the right of way on Saunders Road, but it'll be out of the drive lane and the shared shoulder. So we want to keep it off the private road, but shift it as far to the west as possible.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Smith,
Aye.
Trustee Trevino,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Trustee Raff,
Aye.
motion carries.
The next item is an approval of the extension of a contract with MGT for Human Resources Consulting. Director Vasquez?
Thank you. At the December 17th, 2024 board meeting, I had reported to the board about entering an agreement with MGT Impact Solutions to provide the village with an HR consultant. At that time, I said we would initially enter a 6-month engagement for these services as we transitioned from our former HR services agreement with WRB. As we near the end of the 6-month engagement, I can now report to the board on the experience we've had so far. Our consultant, Stefana Przybylski, has provided HR services such as onboarding of new employees, assistance with the insurance open enrollment promotion of employee assistance program, and review of our personnel records. She has exceeded our expectations and provided excellent work at a very high level of professionalism. The proposed extension holds the same pricing model with a 5-hour monthly retainer in the amount of $580. This would be $6,960 for the full 12 months covered by the extension agreement. Any work beyond the retainer amount needs pre-approval from staff and is billed at the same rate of $116 per hour. In the first 5 months of this engagement, our consultant has efficiently managed her time spent on our account, and as a result, the village has so far paid less than 5 hours over the minimum retainer amount. At this meeting, I'm asking or I'm recommending approval of Exhibit A, which is the document that has the extension of the 12-month period, which would cover June 30th of 2025 to July 3rd, 2026.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any other questions or discussion? Trustee Smith?
Yeah, I just have one question. In section 5, which is duration and termination of the agreement, there's things for like failure to pay and material breach and a few other items. I don't see one for convenience. Attorney Huvard, wouldn't that be standard in a village contract to be able to terminate at our convenience if so desired?
We talked about this. Tony, did you have a quick?
Yes, in Exhibit A, which I put it in front of the rest of the agreement, there is language that says either party may terminate at any time by providing 30 days of written notice.
Thank you. I jumped directly to the contract.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Trevino,
Aye.
Trustee Eastman,
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Trustee Raff,
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Last item of new business is a discussion of bid results for the Saunders Road Project STP. Director Witt, please.
Thank you. So I just want to say that I failed to mention earlier tonight with regard to the neighborhood meeting. We have, as of today, mailed out notices to every property owner within 500 feet of the center line of Saunders Road from Duffy all the way to Deerfield Road. So we should have good coverage with regard to that, and we hope to have a good attendance. But again, the meeting will be videotaped and people have an opportunity to go back to it. We also plan, as part of this project, to have an ongoing list of current events on the project, so we can get onto the building department webpage and have updates on, hopefully on a weekly basis for the project as we go through. Trying to just be a little more open with that information. So for this particular item, we finally got let for the IDOT project. Bids were received on Friday. I don't know what time they were received. However, the bid results came to us after 2:00 on Friday afternoon, so we couldn't get the results into this agenda for tonight in order to recommend an approval of a contract. that will be coming forth in the next meeting. So just to let you know that the cost of the project came in, well, take that back. The estimate of cost prepared by GHA, which includes the $500,000 that was previously discussed and approved here at the village board meetings, that total cost was $3,267,435. And the letting came in at $3,224,492, or $42,943 under the estimate. So the bids were favorable. Again, I really wish we could have been there to present it to you for tonight, but we have 45 days technically to accept this. It's not really critical mass, something that's got to be decided tonight. So moving it 2 weeks down the road is not going to really impact the project, and particularly for the reason that, for those that don't know, this project is running concurrent with Lake County's project, which is relocating the lift station up toward Duffy Lane. Unfortunately, they are still in design phase, won't get the project let, and probably won't start construction, actually digging holes out there till probably late in the fall, maybe even November, December. So we'll be lucky to get our binder course down this year, and we'll be looking at a fresh surface course beginning of next year, which is a good thing because then you've got a nice year of really good road work. However, a little bit of inconvenience while we get there.
Any questions or comments? I have a question.
Sure.
With the time frame, as you just mentioned, is that going to cause a problem with the contract? I mean, do they have because that means the contractors are going to have to extend until next year.
The contracts extend, but it's my understanding with this, the contract amounts don't change.
Don't change.
We were in contact with the Thomas Engineering, who is doing the construction observation portion of it earlier this week, and he's just anxious to get it scheduled.
Yeah.
So we did have conversation on that. To my knowledge, no, those numbers are what the numbers are.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there any old business? No, hearing none. Board comments. Anybody have a comment for the good of the order? We have no reason to go into executive session. The next time and date for the next meeting, there will be a Board of Trustees Committee of the Whole meeting on July 1st, 2025, starting at 6:30 p.m. And then the Board of Trustees regular meeting will immediately follow at 7:30 p.m. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.